Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, the podcast that takes, those really dense academic papers and makes them surprisingly interesting. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita.
We've noticed a lot of you are tuning in, which is amazing, but I haven't quite hit that subscribe button yet.
Yeah, and that little button, honestly, it's so small, but it makes such a huge difference in helping us reach more people with these important discussions.
Right. It's true. Like the algorithms, those mysterious forces that decide what we all see and hear, they pay a lot of attention to subscriber numbers.
Yeah, think of it like the subscribing. It's like casting a vote for quality content, So these insightful research discussions don't just get lost in the sea of all the information out there.
More subscribers equals more visibility. Right. And that means more resources for us to make even deeper dives for you.
Yeah.
Maybe bring in experts for interviews, even do some live Q&A sessions where you can jump in.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about building a community around research,
Yeah.
where curiosity thrives and knowledge is like shared and debated. Today we're going deep into awe, that feeling of wonder and amazement. And we'll explore how it affects us as consumers.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating.
It is. We're looking at this super interesting research article. It's called Awe-Inspired, Appraising Awe's Consequences for Consumers and Brands.
Okay.
It was published in 2025, just this year, in the Journal of Consumer Psychology, and it's by Lisa Cavanaugh. Have you heard of her?
The name rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've come across some of her work before.
Well, she's diving into how awe, that feeling you get when you experience something vast or mind-blowing, can, play some unexpected tricks on us when we're shopping or making choices. Kind of a consumer psychology angle on awe.
Interesting. So how awe might make us buy things we don't need or maybe even regret later?
Exactly. Or, make us more susceptible to certain marketing tactics.
Oh, I could see how that could happen.
Now, Cavanaugh is building on the work of another researcher, Dacher Keltner. He's kind of the awe guru, if you will.
Right, Keltner. Yeah, he's done a lot of work on the psychology of awe.
So for those who might not be familiar with his work, how does he define awe? What are the key elements?
Well, Keltner breaks down awe into two key parts. First, there's this thing called perceived vastness. Think about staring at the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
Or the night sky, just feeling small in the face of something immense. That's perceived vastness. And then second, there's something called accommodation.
Accommodation.
Yeah, it's like how our brains have to scramble to understand something that breaks our usual expectations. So witnessing a magic trick, for example.
Oh, right.
Or seeing a technological innovation that just seems impossible. Our brains are like, wait, what? How does that even work? That's accommodation in action.
So awe can be triggered by nature, but also by things like music, art, even acts of kindness, right?
Exactly. Keltner identifies, I think it's 8 different sources of awe. Nature's a big one, but there's also moral beauty, collective effervescence, visual design, music, spirituality, big ideas, and the life cycle. It's a pretty broad spectrum.
And Cavanaugh's argument, the really interesting part, is that despite all the good vibes, awe can actually lead to some not-so-great decisions.
Not so great. How so?
Well, when it comes to buying stuff, she's saying that awe can actually mess with our decision-making process as consumers.
Oh, that's intriguing. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows then. There are downsides to awe.
Right, and this is what we're going to dive into, all those potential pitfalls of awe, like can it make us more impulsive, more likely to fall for marketing tricks?
I'm hooked already. Let's get into it. Tell me about some of these awe gone wrong situations.
Okay, so imagine you're facing a tough medical decision. You're overwhelmed by all the factors to weigh, all the risks and benefits, the different treatment options. It can feel huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those kinds of decisions are incredibly weighty.
Exactly. And Cavanaugh calls this causal vastness, where the sheer scale of cause and effect feels immense. And that sense of awe, that feeling of being overwhelmed by the complexity of it all, might actually make it harder to choose.
So your brain is just overloaded. It's like, this is too much. I can't process all of this.
Exactly. It's like your brain is saying, this is too big to grasp. I can't decide. And then there's causal accommodation, which is when something totally throws off our expectations of how the world works. Cavanaugh uses the example of really lifelike robots.
Oh, those things are getting so incredibly realistic these days.
I know, it's kind of freaky.
Yeah.
But we see a machine acting human, and our brains have to try to make sense of that. It violates our expectations of what robots are and how they should behave.
It's like, hold on, that's not supposed to happen.
Right, and that disconnect can be both fascinating, obviously, but also unsettling. Like, whoa, what does this mean for the future?
Definitely unsettling. I think a lot of people are feeling that these days with how fast technology is advancing.
Absolutely. Cavanaugh's arguing that all of this causal vastness and accommodation, impacts how we think. Keltner actually describes this as systems-based thinking.
Systems-based thinking.
It's basically how we process information and make decisions. Like, are we thinking analytically, weighing each option carefully, or are we relying more on gut feelings and intuition?
So it's like a battle between logic and emotion. Does awe make us lean more towards one or the other?
Well, that's the question. Does awe make us use both our fast intuitive thinking, what some researchers call system 1, and our slower, more deliberate thinking, what they call system 2? Cavanaugh is suggesting that awe might actually boost both systems.
Interesting. So awe could make us both more impulsive and more analytical at the same time. That's a weird thought.
Right. It's complex, and it might depend on what's causing that awe in the first place. Maybe being awestruck by a big idea like the theory of relativity pushes you toward a more analytical mindset. But then feeling awe at someone's incredible act of kindness might make you more intuitive.
Oh, okay. I see. So the source of the awe might determine how it affects our thinking style.
Exactly. But let's get down to brass tacks. Can you give me some real-world examples of how awe might actually lead to some bad choices when we're shopping?
Sure. Well, remember that awe makes us focus on patterns and connections.
Yeah.
And that can make us vulnerable to cognitive biases.
Cognitive biases, those are those mental shortcuts our brains take that can lead us astray, right?
Exactly. Like the clustering illusion, where we see patterns in random events. Or the fundamental attribution error, where we overemphasize someone's personality to explain their actions and kind of ignore the context.
So, like, if I see a commercial for a lottery ticket and it shows all these people winning and celebrating, my brain goes, hey, maybe I could be a winner too, even though realistically the odds of winning are super slim.
Exactly. You're seeing a pattern, a connection between buying a ticket and winning, even though there's no real link.
Right.
Or let's say you work with a financial advisor and your investments do well.
Okay.
Awe might make you think the advisor is a genius and downplay the role of luck, or just the market doing well.
Wow. Yeah. It's like the awe makes us see what we want to see, even if it's not really there.
Right. It can distort our perception.
So it's not just about awe making us good or bad shoppers. It's about how it changes our thought process. It's like reprograms us in a way.
In a way, yes. It can definitely influence how we interpret the world and make decisions.
That's kind of scary, actually. It's like marketers could use awe to trick us into buying stuff we don't need or that doesn't even live up to the hype.
It's something to be aware of for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, this is already so interesting, but I think we need to take a quick break and come back to dive into some more specific examples of how this awe thing plays out in our consumer lives.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's just so much we don't know about how awe impacts us as consumers.
You know what's funny, though? It feels like awe has become this, product in itself.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, brands are trying to package it and sell us these awe-inspiring experiences.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a bit of that going on. Especially now when it seems like everyone's looking for unique and meaningful experiences.
So I'm curious, thinking about Cavanaugh's research, where does awe fit in across that whole buying journey? We talked about how it might influence our initial decision to buy something.
Right.
But what about after we've actually made the purchase? Does awe play a role in how satisfied we are with a product or a brand?
That's a great question. And it probably circles back to, direct versus indirect awe. Like if a brand is promising us awe directly through the product and then it falls short, well, obviously we're going to be disappointed.
Right, totally.
It's kind of like when you see a movie trailer, right? And the trailer is just way more exciting than the actual movie. You're expecting this big epic adventure and then let down.
Ugh, I've been there. Too many times. It's like the awe bubble bursts and then you just feel cheated.
Exactly. But on the other hand, if a brand takes that more indirect approach where they're positioning themselves as a facilitator of awe-inspiring experiences, it's different.
Okay, how so?
It gives the customer more control because they're not just passively receiving awe, they're part of creating it. And that can make the whole experience way more satisfying.
I like that. It's like the difference between buying a pre-packaged vacation where everything is planned out for you versus planning your own adventure.
Ooh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Because the pre-packaged vacation might promise you awe, but with a self-planned trip, you're the one discovering and experiencing awe on your own terms.
That makes a lot of sense. And those are always the most memorable trips, the ones you plan yourself.
Right. And I feel like that sense of ownership, like you created your own awe, well, that makes it feel way more authentic, more meaningful.
And I bet it probably leads to stronger brand loyalty too.
Right?
Like if a brand helped me create this truly amazing, awe-inspiring experience, well, I'd probably stick with them because I'd trust them to keep guiding me toward those kinds of experiences.
It's less about the product itself and more about what the brand represents, those shared values.
Right. It becomes like a partnership in your pursuit of awe
Yeah.
instead of just a company trying to sell you stuff.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. Not every brand is selling awe. I mean, some are just selling like convenience or practicality or just being affordable. So does awe even have a place in those more everyday purchases? Those things we buy all the time?
That's a good point. It's a good question. I mean, awe might not be the main reason we buy those everyday products, but I still think it can play a role, even if it's subtle.
Really? Like how?
Well, let's say a really simple product is just incredibly well designed, or maybe it's super innovative or solves a problem in a really clever way. Those things could evoke a sense of awe, right?
Like maybe I'm not going to be like totally awestruck when I buy a new toothbrush. But if that toothbrush has some new cool feature that totally changes my dental hygiene routine, maybe that's a little bit of awe.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's all about exceeding expectations, even in those seemingly mundane categories.
Yeah.
And even a small spark of awe, however tiny, can add to our overall satisfaction with that product.
I like that. So awe isn't just for luxury brands or those once-in-a-lifetime experiences. It can show up in our everyday lives, too. But, okay, going back to Cavanaugh's point about awe sometimes leading to negative consequences, how does that play out with, those more mundane, less awe-inspiring products?
I think it's important to remember those cognitive biases we were talking about. So let's say you're buying laundry detergent, something pretty basic, and you see this commercial, and everyone in the commercial is just amazed by how clean their clothes are.
Like they've never seen clean clothes before.
Exactly. It's totally over the top. But that might trigger a sense of awe, even if it feels a little manufactured.
Okay, so I'm watching these people freak out over spotless laundry, and suddenly I'm convinced that I absolutely need to buy this overpriced detergent, even though it's probably not much better than the cheaper stuff.
It's possible, because awe can definitely make us vulnerable to persuasive messages, especially when those messages tap into our desire for, meaning and connection. We might end up thinking a product is way better than it actually is just because it's presented in this awe-inspiring way.
Okay, so basically, even when we're buying everyday stuff, we got to be mindful of how awe might be creeping in and messing with our decisions.
I think so. It's like we always need to be asking ourselves, am I truly impressed by this product? Or am I just getting caught up in the hype?
Critical thinking is key, especially now with all the ways brands are trying to influence us.
Definitely. It's a wild world out there.
Okay, so we've talked about how awe affects us as consumers, but what about the brands themselves? Are there downsides for brands that rely too heavily on awe in their marketing?
I think one of the biggest risks is that awe can be a pretty fleeting emotion. Like it's hard to maintain that same level of wonder and amazement over time.
It's true. The more you see something, the less impressive it becomes.
Right. So if a brand builds its entire identity around awe, it might be really tough to keep customers engaged over the long run. You know that saying, familiarity breeds contempt? Well, the more we're exposed to something that was once awe-inspiring, the less awe-inspiring it becomes.
It's like brands need to find that sweet spot, that balance. They need to harness the power of awe without becoming totally dependent on it.
Definitely. It's about creating experiences that feel genuine and resonate with customers on a deeper level.
It all comes down to building real connections and making people feel like they're part of something bigger. If a brand can do that, they're golden.
Absolutely.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm definitely starting to see awe everywhere I look.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about all the ways it's probably shaped my own decisions, big and small. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to something Cavanaugh talked about in her research, something that really stuck with me. It was about how awe can motivate us to do good in the world.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It wasn't just about buying stuff. It was about making a difference.
Exactly. Like, awe can inspire us to volunteer our time or donate to charities or fight for causes we believe in.
It can even inspire us to just be kinder to each other, to be more compassionate in our everyday lives.
That's a beautiful way to think about awe. It's not just about feeling good, it's about doing good, too.
I couldn't agree more.
It makes me wonder, like, knowing more about awe, thanks to, research like Cavanaugh's, if that actually changes how we experience it.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
It's kind of like when you learn how a magic trick works. Does it, like, become less impressive? Or do you maybe gain a new appreciation for the skill involved?
That's a really good analogy. It's almost like, will understanding the mechanics of awe, will it, like, diminish the magic of it? Or will it actually deepen our appreciation?
Yeah. I think it's probably a little bit of both, right? We might lose a little bit of that childlike wonder, maybe. But we might also gain a deeper understanding of what's actually happening in our brains when we have those moments of awe.
And maybe that understanding actually allows us to tap into the power of awe more intentionally.
Yeah.
Like using it to motivate ourselves or to, create positive change in the world.
Right. That would be pretty amazing. So, okay, we've talked about all the science behind awe, the ways brands use it, the potential upsides and downsides. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, something they can connect back to their own lives.
I like that. Make it personal.
Exactly. So think about a purchase you made recently. It could be something big, like a new car, or something small, like even just a book or a cup of coffee. Take a moment to really think about why you chose that specific thing. Did awe play any role in your decision?
It might have been a conscious influence. Maybe you were drawn to a brand's like awe-inspiring advertising.
Or maybe it was more subtle, more subconscious. Like maybe you felt a sense of wonder at the product's design or the story behind how it was made. Whatever it was, if awe played a role, was it a positive or negative influence? Did it help you make a choice you're happy with? Or did it maybe cloud your judgment a little bit?
Yeah, good point.
And remember, this isn't about like judging yourself or anything. It's about becoming more aware of how this emotion, this feeling of awe, shapes our decisions as consumers. It's about understanding that we have a choice in how we respond to those feelings.
We can let it sweep us away, or we can use it as this tool for, personal growth or connection or positive action.
That's such a great way to put it. So as you go about your day, keep an eye out for those moments of awe, big or small, and keep exploring. The world's a pretty amazing place full of wonder, and it's just waiting to be discovered.
And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for more captivating deep dives like this one. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.